What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Sec Tech Podcast. My name is Matt. I'm your host. With me, as always, Kenn Williamson. Kenn, how you been doing these days, man?
Doing pretty good. I'll tell you what I've been dealing with recently is, it's fall here now. And in fall in Oklahoma, there are these plants that grow in your yard that are little sticker burrs. And I have been fighting them like crazy in my yard. Partially my fault, just because since it hasn't been as, sunny and the grass hasn't been growing as much, I haven't been mowing as often.
Right.
And so... like on my way here, I came out my front door and I saw a little patch of them just growing up, and I'm just like, oh man, that's what I'm gonna have to do when I get home is deal with the sticker burrs. How about you, Matt? What's been going on with you?
Baby prep.
Yeah,
that's sweet. Countdown is going for that. And a little bit of some more gaming. I'm really. So it's like a race against time now, because I've got like 4 months until my baby comes, right? But so I got to like finish all these games because I feel like I'm not going to have time once the baby comes.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
You just get one of those little carriers, and you just plop the baby right here, and then your hands are free, so you're good to go.
You got it 6 months, man. The baby gets here and just sleeps and poops for 6 months.
Yeah. So that's the other thing I'm hearing is that I've got time there. So in those early stages, because you really just kind of you just feed it and then stare at it, I mean, those are really the things going on in my world. Now I want to talk about what's going on in our guest world, because we've got with us Kellen, and make sure I say this right. Is it Cowan?
Cowan. Yeah.
Cowan. Kellen Cowan, who is a cybersecurity guru, has over 15 years in cybersecurity. Owns his own. Is it? What would you call it? A consulting firm, or how would you?
Technically, yeah, we do consulting, assessment, and MSP. So it's MSP work, yeah.
MSP, and just a ton of information that I think is going to be really good for our audience, because a lot of our audience, Kellen, are business owners. We have some software engineers, some product owners. That sort of. That's sort of a person, but we also have some people who are, kind of owning their own technologies, their own companies, maybe, a company that isn't quite well versed in technology, but technology is a pivotal part of what they do.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, I think the topic of cybersecurity is going to be really good to get into. So, I mean, let's just start here, because I was telling you before we even started, I don't even know a ton about cybersecurity. Like, I think for the average person, you say cybersecurity, I just think like have a good Facebook password, right? Like, or like the banking app, like my banking app just makes me change my password. Like, I don't really know a whole lot about what it means for a company, for a business. What does cybersecurity encompass, and tell us why it's so important in today's, environment.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that's interesting too, because Matt, you hit on a couple of things like the Facebook password or the bank dual authentication where you get the PIN. People know about cybersecurity, because I do training all the time, what they've heard. Yeah. And we hear all these tech companies, and they've really kind of been a challenge, is because they'll promote a product, but they'll call it cybersecurity, right? So it's just everybody's lost. And so from a base level, I'll answer the first one. Like, if I have a business, and I like to make things non-technical for a lot of people, and a lot of guys are visual, right? Like, if you go into a high-end building, sometimes there's a guy in a black suit. And that guy in a black suit, because you have the building and people inside, he pats you down and he makes sure everybody that comes in doesn't have knives or things like that. But they also, let's say they serve drinks inside the building. When you leave, he also makes sure that nobody leaves with a drink, right? Mm-hmm. So I've got to secure my building. So that's a piece of equipment. When we talk about firewalls and things. If I have a business, I don't need the internet provider. So let's say Cox and AT&T are local here. Yeah. I have to buy internet from somebody. They bring a little black piece of equipment. That is not security. I go buy a firewall, and the point of that is to not let things in that don't need to come in, and also I have people inside. I can't let things out, right? Gotcha. So I can control both. From there, I have pieces of equipment. Every piece of equipment I have has its own piece of security. So those are software pieces. Okay. And then as you're tracking, normally I either in the cloud, so the business owner knows it's not here, right? It's somewhere else. Cloud is just data server somewhere else. It's outside my building. There's my data, my software, or it's in the building. I need something that's monitoring and protecting that. But then I also need to play worst case scenario. If I'm talking security, that needs to be completely vulnerable and infected. And so how does my backup play now into security? So we're in Oklahoma, right? We walk out in our boxers. When we hear the tornado sirens, we have quick trips everywhere. We're known for that. But if you came in, you'd be like, don't tornadoes kill people? And you'll see a bunch of dudes in their boxers just looking around, looking at the winds, right? We know when to go inside. But your business is less likely to get hit by a tornado than it is somebody click on something, right? And so when you look at that, all my hardware pieces, wherever I have my data, it needs a piece of security, right? We call it antivirus, anti-malware. Like any tech can give you the technical reasons, but as a business owner, I need to secure those. My backup needs to be part of it. And then probably the biggest culprit now with how well the cyber groups, because that's the other part, how well they know the hardware and software you purchase, if you purchase it right, works, is those people in email. And so you don't just buy email from Office 365 or Google. You need to buy other pieces to secure it. They're called spam filters, right? Okay. And so they'll open up links for you before they actually go out. Just different things. They'll notify if an email's from outside. Those are all just general pieces of security.
Gotcha.
That makes sense? Yeah.
So, I mean, that kind of leads me into my first question, which is, what do you see as the biggest security risk? You know, is it technology or, I mean, because my experience has been that it's people that are the biggest security risk. And how do you mitigate that risk versus, you know, you kind of talked about the technology side where you have a lot of, but, you know, a very stubborn user is going to be able to circumvent whatever measures you put in place. So how do you mitigate that kind of stuff?
No, that's a great question, and it is. So statistically, 93% of breaches, I think over the last 3 years, last time I looked, were people-driven. I mean, the point of entry was a person, not a vulnerability in hardware or software. From then, like you said, if I've got a sophisticated criminal or somebody that's bought resources, which is also happening, all three of us knowing a limited amount per like a cyber hacker, we could go buy software in Russia, just chill out where the regulation's not so stiff and just hack people for a living if we wanted to by buying software from other people. But Ken, you're exactly right. It's people. And so I need to train my people. And what I see in training people, the problem is before we had all the tech, like everybody knew that there was a drawer that you put a folder in and locked it. As I go to train humans, the way we're onboarding people in our business, they don't know what that means on a computer. They're putting stuff everywhere. The other challenge is for humans is the amount of software available. They can just get Dropbox or Trello, or, I mean, we can keep going at all the free stuff to get you engaged. Business owners are not identifying that in their processes and procedures, and they're not restricting those things. And so as I work with businesses, really the major challenge is still the owner. Is they're not taking it serious enough. They're not onboarding their people right. They're not working with their security professionals to say, where shouldn't this stuff go? And can we just block it? The answer is yeah, but they have to be able to write the right processes and ask the right questions, right? For people, the number one culprit is still email. The other challenge is how many emails do you guys get a day?
50 plus every day.
Yeah.
So just like this podcast is going to hit on LinkedIn, right? You know where Brent asked me to be on the podcast? LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And so now all the stuff that was happening in email that we got names for it, right? It's all happening on LinkedIn. Guess what? It's all happening on Facebook. Guess what? It's all happening via text. My question is, why do our employees get 6 ways to communicate with the world from our business?
Yeah, and communication overload. That's a big question. But kind of following up on something that you had mentioned, which is like physical security. We understand, and we understand the purpose of it, and we're willing to put up with a little bit of inconvenience in order to implement that. Like you mentioned, the pat downs, you know, you got at the airport, you got to put your thing through the x-ray conveyor.
Sure, yeah.
You know, a lot of places will have a key fob or a card that you have to use to get in and out of the building. But then, you know, when you're talking about on a computer or on a device, people, it just feels like, are really resistant to something that is going to add, you know, relatively minimal, you know, like a pat down, you know, take a few seconds. But it just feels like when we're talking about cybersecurity, there's a resistance there to common sense mitigation strategies that isn't there, that isn't there in the physical security aspect. Do you see that in your?
Yeah, I mean, to sum it up, we don't want stuff slower.
Yeah.
Right. We've
No,
already got so
exactly.
much to do. And honestly, if you audit these even small businesses, they have 60 pieces of software.
Yeah.
They've made their business too complicated. They haven't refined their processes. So things are already taking too long. We have too many things, and there's so much disorder that if they're thinking something's going to be slower, it drives them nuts because they already feel behind. Our culture already pushes that too, right? The problem is as well is they don't hear about the breaches. So a lot of the companies you're talking about are not larger companies.
Right.
They don't want that. It's not going to happen to me. Well, no, it happens to you every day. Like literally 3 hours of my, what is it? We're on Wednesday.
Yeah. Yes, Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, it's Wednesday. Monday, I'm working with a small business for 3 hours with another one of my groups that does the recovery and remediation of ransomware on 17 servers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you about that because I've heard of ransomware. I watched. I don't know if you saw it, but there's a series on Hulu. I can't remember the name, but this lady basically goes into all these like black markets.
Mm-hmm.
She goes into a ransomware market where like dude is like sitting outside of like some office with this little thing, and he's able to pull emails. Like it's like this, like almost like a radar gun. I don't know what it is, but he's like pulling people's information like in the building. He's taking stuff off the Wi-Fi and then he uses that, and then he sets like a ransomware. We are currently working with a company that had some ransomware issues a couple of years ago. So I just kind of wanted to go into that. Can you just for businesses, for us, kind of explain the different types of cybersecurity attacks? Because we hear like ransomware, but what is that? And then what else outside of just ransomware should we be aware of?
Well, I think the thing to be aware of, right, is if you take yourself, and that's what we can't do. So take yourself outside of the United States where we have a lot of, you're going to get caught. If you're doing something in state, for instance, I had somebody, it was a man in the middle attack. I'm going to use you guys. Matt, somebody was reading your email.
Okay.
Right. And in your email, and you didn't know it.
Okay.
Ken, you're emailing him and you're the accounting department. Okay. And so we're getting ready to do a wire transfer. So Matt, somebody's reading the email. When it's time for that to go down, somebody has just copied the whole email trail, went and bought a domain with 2 letters flipped because that's pretty long. And they copied it. So every signature, everything's fine. It's called a man in the middle attack. And then you wire transfer the wrong place, right? It happened in the United States. Like that person's so done. They're going to get caught. A lot of this happens outside the country. And so outside the country, you have groups that are set up. China has 3-story buildings. Like when we go do our hackathons, they talk about this different crazy stuff. 3-story buildings that are business complexes, one company in them, and they have different departments. This department will invest in ransomware, which encrypts every document, and it's used for extortion. They want a payment to unencrypt your documents and your network so you can actually work again.
Wow.
They have other people that are focused on the wire transfer and the banking type fraud, playing the man in the middle attacks. They have other people that just gain access. So there's departments using servers with all kinds of built software by them or purchased software. The second they get access keys. So there's an unencrypted wireless network. There's open RDP sessions all over the place. There's old Windows 7s. They can go out and search for those things. When they get the ping, they're selling all that information off over and over and over again. There's others that'll get into email. And this is a big one too. Your executives keep, like Brent. Let's talk about Brent. If I get in his email, one of the things that they can do is forward, don't touch anything overnight, forward every document to their servers. Okay. Get completely out, run a script of software they purchased that'll just say, these are all the attachments to Brent's email. They can go sell those off, or they can come back to Brent and convince him that they're in your network because he has so many documents from the network and email, right?
Yeah.
There's so many ways to make money. And then what organizations will also do, just like we are, you talked about, Matt, you don't know everything about cybersecurity. I know nothing about gaming and half of the code that you guys write, nothing. But we're both in technology.
Right.
So there's organizations that'll be elite and they'll specialize in something. And then they'll grab a couple partners, like when they hit the city of Tulsa, and there's 3 groups that'll actually get together and work together. And so that's how a lot of these breaches are happening as well.
Yeah, can you break that one down? Because I think that is a good case of what happened recently with the city of Tulsa.
Well, a lot of the major breaches. So what's happening is an organization will get access to something. They'll reach out to one of the groups that specializes in ransomware. And that group that specializes in ransomware will hit them. There was another group that'll go in and run scripts and cover up the track of how they got in.
Yeah.
So that, you don't have insurance that they got in here and we can remediate this way with backup, all that kind of stuff. They cover the trail. Then they had a fourth group that just negotiates the ransom. Those are 4 independent groups that specialize in different things working together for, I think they asked for 26 million.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was one thing I kind of wondered about on the ransomware. Like, do you usually just end up paying them, or like if you pay them, will they let your system go? Because I mean, it feels like you're breached now. Like, you give them money. Like, what's to say that they're gonna do what they say?
That's such a loaded question. So,
Sure.
like, I'll backtrack because it's just interesting. I think it was 8 years ago. We got called by a company with 18 locations. Somebody had gotten in. So they got in with full access, it's admin, but full access to everything. Carte blanche, found the backups and deleted it because they had full access, found the offsite backups, deleted them, and encrypted everything. They had copies of all of it. So 8 years ago, they were using a dark web name, right? And this company got with the FBI. We closed all the holes, did things. And this organization had a good reputation on the dark web, meaning the FBI at that point was allowed to say, Ken, like, I bet they'll give you your stuff back if you'll pay them 50 grand. And it was all in Bitcoin, right? And the guy that got extorted from said it was weird, like finding Bitcoin. He had a guy show up in a hoodie and give him access to these other 3 because he couldn't find enough at the time. And it's just a slimy world, right? Today, it's completely changed. You know, they're not going to tell you anything. They won't work with you, so you don't know. And here's why you don't know. You may have been hit. So again, back to how this stuff crap goes out. You have organizations, then you have us. We can literally move to another country and just buy software and go nuts with it.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean we know how to even unencrypt anything once it's encrypted. We may not even be able to help them. That's one. And then you look at the place like City of Tulsa, they couldn't pay. I don't believe. So I didn't dig into this, but I know for sure there's at least 10 organizations on the top 10 cybercriminals in the world. And if you're hit by that organization, you're not allowed to pay the ransom. That's negotiated with terrorists.
Wow.
And our government was trying to do it for all ransomware, right?
Yeah.
Which is iffy, right? Because you're a business, you keep afloat. Plus, the government's one of the main reasons we work with other countries, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're attached to the enemy, but that's what they're going for. And that's the point. And it's not just because of these organizations with the big companies. It's because they're selling stuff for a service. So I can get ransomware as a service in bulk email, like a marketing company. You go pay a marketing company, send a bunch of emails out. You can do the same thing for $200 a month in Russia and send out emails with ransomware in them. Okay, and I hit all these people. I can go make money. That's why everybody's going to get hit. It's also back to the beginning. Every business owner and anybody that cares that works for an organization as a high-level manager needs to go, what is security?
Yeah.
Like, let's play worst case scenario. How do they get in? How do we have our bases covered? And then how do we create gaps in those bases we covered so we don't just lose everything, right? That's your best case scenario. And technology is to that point. But I will tell you, one, almost no small business I've talked to does what they should. Not all of it. 2, when I go train everybody, I call it the ABCs. Like, don't use the same password everywhere. Have somewhere you track your password. Know how to look at an email, right? Don't keep your passwords in your browsers. Every single person almost that I train does all those things wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the beginning of training.
Shoot, man, I do all those wrong.
Yeah, I don't know.
I've got
I have
all my
a couple of
saved.
passwords that I have memorized, and then like a bunch of other accounts that are just in the browser that are all derivative from.
So third party, like Keeper Security,
Yeah.
or Bitwarden's free, but Keeper Security paid, I think it's $50 a year. That's nothing because it'll monitor breached accounts for you too. It'll tell you when your passwords suck. And you put all your passwords in there. And once they're in there, you can link it with your browser so it logs you in. And it solves all those problems, right? Just nobody's ever told you. I think that's the thing too. Like, if you go to another country, they talk about this stuff. This is like basics for running a business, and we don't talk about them.
Yeah, what is up with that? Why is it that, I guess here, maybe, like you're saying, maybe it's just an American thing, but why is it that when I hear about cybersecurity, I don't hear about cybersecurity in an educational standpoint. I hear about it more so in a, like, this went wrong. Like, I hear about a ransomware attack. I hear about, your data could be leaking. It's very doom or gloom. It's very, very rarely educational. What's up with that? Why is it so hard to figure out?
I think it's our culture, right? One, we don't like change, right? We don't unless it makes us money. and we can go faster. I mean, look at how much we know about AI. You know
Right.
why? It makes us go faster.
Right.
Running cybersecurity well makes us slow down.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I think too, it's just so much change to process.
Yeah.
Like my processes need to completely change. And so like most people don't want to stop and do it. And then you'll see they throw like, they'll throw the baby out with the bathwater over and over and over again. And then all of a sudden they get breached for 1.3 million, can still stay in business. And then they overbuy. Like, it's just, that's this pitiful thing I keep seeing happen.
Yeah, that's that. Yeah, I can see that. Okay, so I've got, small business, e-commerce, running really successfully, starting to make some good profits. What is the, just what are like 2, 3 really basic things I like need to do in my business today? Just before I even, really, because really what I need to do is have some sort of consultation, I think some sort of education that's deeper. But what are some things in the interim? What are a couple steps I can take, that are just practical that every business should be doing?
Yeah, I think no matter where we're at, we've kind of outrun knowing where everything's at.
Mhm.
So I think the first thing everybody has to do is take an account of everything. Like, what can I remember that I know how I have access to out there? Username and passwords. Then on anything I interact with, if I'll just slow down, I call it optimizing the environment. So if I'm on Google Chrome or my cell phone or anything, I can go to settings and tell it not to track me. I can go to security and tell it to send me a text message when I log in. Like, that's a must too. On every site you touch, you should have a second form of authentication. Meaning if somebody from China now tries to get in your e-commerce site, it should send you a text you weren't waiting on.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, that's weird. You can
Yeah.
go change your e-commerce password, right? So we can start with taking into account of what we have, dual authenticating, and then we need to start securing things. So I'm a small site and I have a couple devices. I need security that also is monitored, and you can pay for that. Don't use anything free, because then I have a website I can go to that monitors when it's up for renewal. It also monitors any weird activity and tells me. I need some
Gotcha.
level to know that something's going on because things happen so quickly now, right? Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah, 100%.
I need to back it up. I mean, the third thing is like, even Office 365, if you read their terms and conditions, they're like, worst day, we may help you if we decide to. We don't have to. And so it's very cheap with the right tools to back your entire Office 365 environment up. People just don't.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean that that kind of, you mentioned culture and free, and this is something that I've found in technology is pretty frustrating, is that a lot of businesses, when it comes to technology, don't want to even pay minimally for tools that'll make their life quite a bit easier. They want to, I see this all the time. I want to build my own thing, whatever. And it's like, how do you communicate to them to say, listen, the return on investment for this is really high, even though it's risk mitigation. Even though we're not talking about increased revenue, we're talking about a potential reduction in risk. How do you communicate that to business people?
I think it's two things. One, I think we need more content like this. We
Mhm.
need to continue to hammer on content like this, because the reality of what's happening is the people that give the free software to give somebody a taste, to upsell them and get them in their environment, they have buying power. They're spending $100 million on marketing that we don't have. The second thing is face-to-face meetings.
Yeah.
And so the more people that we can interact with in our city and sit down and talk, like actually have a business conversation. So get away from the cybersecurity, this, that, talk about sustainability, right? And the company's last day, have they run a true DR plan? And cyber will come up in that, right? I mean, fun fact, doing it wrong. So I'm doing an oil and gas keynote for cyber. In the oil and gas industry, there's all this amazing tech, right? But they didn't invite like the cybersecurity guy. They either don't have him or didn't invite him to the table. So they blow $250,000 to multiple millions of dollars on all these different, it's called Internet of Things, but there's just different devices that you can physically put out in the world now that bring data back, super efficient. They didn't secure any of it. So what you have is these companies grabbing technology, and we do this at home. We grab this cool technology and we spend our money, and that's all the money we had. And then we go, oh shoot, I need to secure it. And there's nothing left over, right? And so if we're not thinking down that line, like less convenient, talk about privacy too. The security and privacy have to be in the convenience conversation up front, or we're going to blow our budget. And I've seen that happen big in the oil and gas field.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a really big one. Is they have a lot of data that the internet and things in general. I think is kind of the Wild West right now, where not a lot of people are investing in security for those things.
We just did it at the border.
Yeah.
Our government just did it. So they rolled out an app to let people into our country, and the freaking cartel hacked it.
Yeah,
And they let
Yeah.
everybody, and they're charging them to be on the list.
Right.
They're making money off the United States government app.
yeah. So something that was supposed to make it more efficient now has been subverted and is now being used to make more money for cartels.
I guarantee you they didn't put enough budget into security.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, because that's interesting, because I think if you're, kind of a C-suite person, right? And, you're having to decide where to spend. Cybersecurity is one of those things where you look at it and you go, yeah, there's not a whole, like, they're not ever going to be able to make me money here, right? They're not, a software engineer can create some sort of feature that allows me to charge more, right? My marketing team gets it out there, all these different teams. And so a lot of people kind of look at cybersecurity and go, it's not really a revenue driver. And so I can see how it gets put on the back burner, but really, in all reality, it feels to me, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it just feels like a roll of the dice, because the day that ransomware attack or something happens where you're going to pay 100x more than what you would have if you just put together a cybersecurity team, right?
That's back to this conversation. This is good content. Like, it's not about ransomware. So the ransomware is just what gets them paid. They're running businesses, right? So I've been a part of several companies calling us after the breach. So they've had ransomware or something, and I've seen this multiple times because they have access. Like, you guys, profiles are handed out at SecTech, right?
Mm-hmm.
All different things. They'll run and change all the admin access and run all kinds of scripts to screw everything up. It'll take one of my team members or your team member at your site a week to reconstruct everything.
Wow.
And they'll go, hey, we can hit a button and put it back like it was, or you can pay us. And so the conversation is not really around cybersecurity. It's about uptime. It's kind of like, bro, you got a generator you spent like $50,000 on in the back because you don't want to be down for 4 hours in a storm, because we have storms in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Do you want to be down a week? Because they're trying to make money, and they know how much time you can afford to be down and what it's worth. I mean, then especially, so here's a funny one too. With Access, they've actually gotten a hold, and it's a good pro tip real quick. If you get cyber liability insurance, don't keep it in the same place as all your other documents. So there's a CPA firm hit for $1.3 million a couple years ago. Guess how much their their insurance company would pay? $1.3 million.
Wow.
They got a hold of the document.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so again, it's just money. And if we understand that they're going to make, with their tools and their software, if they're going to make our life miserable for the maximum amount of time to make sure we pay them, with the option to reset it all, because it's about that payment, I think it'll make the conversation a little easier.
That's kind of a nice cybersecurity guy, though. He was like, listen, I know it's 1.3 million here for insurance. All right. I'm gonna be a nice guy. I'm not gonna go to 1.5. I'm just gonna keep it at 1.3, and
He just
maybe
wants to get paid quick.
Yeah,
He's got other people on the hook. So you would talk about nice.
It's a nice guy. Right
This will freak you out. I talked about the multi-site company that called us after somebody had deleted all their backups. The cyber criminal that had a dark web name in a cyber wallet had 4 other companies on that cyber wallet getting hit the exact same way. We could see the company names when my team was working with him. Also, he said please and thank you in every interaction. And when it was all said and done, we'd, I think, uncovered about 6 or 7 points of vulnerability and shut them. He sent them a whole blueprint on the same thing, so somebody else didn't get to them because he got paid.
Wow.
And I mean, again, this is just a payday. They're putting
guy.
Yeah.
Sounds like we need to just employ all them to do cybersecurity, and then.
Well, it's. Can you imagine? It's the worst day ever. I mean, that's a nice guy, but you're handing somebody $50,000 because you had open ports in your network and some things that weren't properly configured.
Yeah.
And he's being polite and making sure somebody else doesn't make you feel this terrible in like a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's that's a whole nother.
You're just helpless. Yeah.
Yeah, you really are. But I guess if you're gonna get mugged, it's nice to get a thank you after. That's basically what I took away. But
Nice.
okay, so part of that though, when we're talking about for businesses, for people, when we're talking about having everything secure, taking some of these practical steps. Um, I'm curious though, well, how a lot of tools are coming up. AI is coming up, multi-factor authentication is coming, so what are you guys seeing and from the cybersecurity side? How is that changing? Because again, we talked about ransomware, man in the middle, but as we innovate, I'm assuming cyber criminals are innovating as well. I mean, they're not just going to be like, two-factor authentication, I'm out. This is
There's times too.
like, so
There's
what's on the
yeah.
rise there?
Well,
Yeah.
there's been a big advancement in some of the security tools that talk now, with some of the integrations of AI, like higher levels of AI on the protection side, right? Because of what the cyber criminals have come, they keep going back and forth. Sometimes the cyber groups outrun the good guys, and sometimes the good guys outrun the bad.
Yeah.
But once they have their hands on it, it's back and forth. Really, you just need to get in the know. You can't be ignorant. You need a trusted partner, and you need to invest in what they're spending. On the ransomware front, here's the important part. So ransomware is the most used software because it's the most invested in. So these groups are spending tens of millions of dollars in R&D to make that software better because it makes them billions. I think last time I looked, cybercrime was over 6 trillion worldwide.
Yeah, it's one of those
Six.
things where keep going back to it, but because it's risk mitigation, it's really hard to make the business case for it until it happens, and then it's really easy, right? So, we're kind of getting close to the end, and so I was thinking, what would be like one practical step? Like if I'm a business owner and I'm watching this podcast and you've opened my eyes, what's my first step? What's my first concrete step to saying I want to take charge of this for my company?
Quit trying to do it yourself.
There you go.
It's not it really isn't. Companies like mine, for small businesses, not expensive for an assessment, and other companies, get somebody to come in and assess everything. And then they'll give you a guide with what you need to do first all the way down. So you have a blueprint of your business. Otherwise, you're going to, and that's the hard thing, right? Is cybersecurity is them getting in that hole. So what good does it do for you to have nothing and invest tens of thousands of dollars and not do the right thing?
Yeah.
I mean, again, you just blew money. So you have to do the right thing. And they need to admit, because a lot of people do their research, this is an area where you as an executive that are bright, that could start a business, you don't have any business researching it and trying to figure it out. You just don't. It's the fastest moving thing in the country right now. And AI is just going to accelerate it.
Yeah, the time cost of me as a business owner trying to get a grip on my cybersecurity, the ROI is just never going to be there because I'm never going to catch up. And in all reality, again, everything has a time cost, and my time is better spent in other places. And so, yeah, I think that's really practical. I mean, we talk about this with software a lot. We've talked a lot about the importance of, if you're an executive, you've really got to empower a software team, whether that's consultants, in-house, whatever. You got to empower them, you got to trust them, and I think doing the same in cybersecurity is great as well. Kellen, where can we find you? We mentioned LinkedIn, but where else can people find you? And tell us a little bit about your business, and how people can find you there.
Yeah, we're New Wave Solutions. So NEWAVE solutions.com is our website. I'm Kellen at newwavesolutions.com. Kellen Cowan on LinkedIn. We have a company page on LinkedIn and Facebook. I mean, just kind of dependent on what your flavor is, right? What you're in the most and what you pay attention to. So they can find us there. And then we partner with organizations, two fronts, because one of the things we didn't talk about is technology should make you more efficient, right? So we want their technology to align with their business goals while identifying the gaps and closing those things. And then I'm super passionate about having the cybersecurity conversations because it is one of the greatest business risks to be down forever or weeks at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And then also training the humans and getting a plan and some policy in place. I can't tell you how many people's policies. Again, we go back to like, what good does it do to do all this and spend on this? Because time is money too. So I
Yeah.
spend all this, and then I don't have things in place for when I hire Kenn. So now Kenn's my weakest link and knows nothing. I mean, again, it's one of those things you just need to do right.
Yeah. Is it harder to develop the policy, or is it harder to train the employees for adoption?
Dude, you need the right policies, but everybody has Chat GPT now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I did a cyber keynote for legal, and they were sitting there like, man, we need a cyber policy for AI. And I'm like, watch this, just ask it the right question and get a template and at least get started on that policy.
Mm-hmm.
You just need some accountability for your people on those kind of things. And then the other thing is the business owner needs to drive the questions. You started a great business, you're bright. Start thinking of what are the right questions to ask. Like I ask about backup. There's 16 different flavors of backup at least.
Yeah.
Like, what's your goal?
Yeah.
And the business owner for his budget can drive that conversation. They can drive the policy conversation. What they need to do is they need to start restricting all this stuff that employees can do and start asking the IT professional, how do I cut a lot of this off so I don't have like Uber's a great case. Do you guys look into that?
No.
18-year-old text one of the people because Uber's super culture. We're super cool. You can communicate 87 different ways. Cool. Like I had the IT department text one of my higher level people and say, I'm the IT department. I'm verifying myself because they had information from somewhere on the person, verified that information and said, now I need you to verify you. Asked them a couple questions, then asked them for a personal code they sent them. No, they didn't. They just logged into their account. Here comes the dual authentication code.
Oh, wow.
The professional gave it. Now I'm an 18-year-old in Uber's environment. What happened next? Somebody put all the passwords on an Excel sheet in Slack. Well, the 18-year-old just logged it. He didn't hack anything.
Yeah.
He tricked one person and then found a document that should have never been made with access to everything. And he purchased ransomware from somewhere and just launched it in and started. Luckily, he just made fun of him.
Yeah.
He's 18. He didn't extort him.
Right.
But it's just that's what's happening now. People are running too fast and we give them way too much. Like really. Like you can't just let your humans, and I don't mean in a bad way, just do whatever they want because they want to try to help or be efficient. And so what you're going to end up with is 3,000 documents on their personal Dropbox.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you so much for coming. You know, I'm with Matt. I don't really know anything about it. Like I'm very happy that we were able to have you here to talk about this stuff because I think it is something where we need to, you know, get these policies in place and then follow them, you know, and that's where I'm at. Like, I find the hacking and everything is kind of like wasted effort for me. Cause it's like, I just don't think in that way. Like, but you know, it's obviously happening. And so rather than trying to figure it out all myself, like you were mentioning, I'm just like, let's get a good policy. Let's follow it. Right. And I think that this was so helpful because that's what I want to do. I just want to be told this is the right way to set things up. Do it this way, and you will mitigate as much risk as you can. You know, and like everything in this world, there's no perfect solution.
Right.
But it is about getting the right thing. So I just wanted to say thanks so much for coming on and talking with us because this has been a really great conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming. I just learned a whole lot, and I hope you guys did as well. Definitely make sure to check out Kellen and his company, and add him on LinkedIn. I know he would love to have a conversation with you guys. We will be back in 2 weeks with another guest for the SecTech podcast. We'll see you guys soon.